Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, we'll remember former Governor Raul Castro, who recently passed away. Also tonight, we'll hear from the chair of the Board of Regents on university budget cuts, and we'll discuss new ways to improve the delivery of food, energy, and water. Those stories next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Former Arizona Governor Raul Castro died last week at the age of 98. Castro was born in Mexico, became a naturalized citizen, and overcame significant obstacles to become an ambassador to 3 countries, a Superior Court judge, a county attorney, and governor.
And people ask me invariably, of all those jobs, what job do you like the most? I said, I'll tell you what I do. I'm retired, and I spend 60% of my time going to elementary schools, talking to 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. I like to motivate young people. I like to walk in the classroom, look at the children, look at their eyes, and let them see and look. Don't tell me that you don't have a chance. You do have a chance. You must get an education. You must go to school. If I was able to do it, so can you. But you've got to get your education.
And joining us now to discuss the life and legacy of Governor Castro is former state lawmaker and veteran political observer Alfredo Gutierrez. Good to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Ted. Yes.
I wanted to ask you, because you were around back in the day.
Indeed. I was volunteering his first and second campaign for governor. And I was the majority leader of the Senate the entire time he was governor.
What kind of governor was he?
I think his greatest achievement is his life. I mean, he was a governor a very brief period of time, a little less than 2 years, and I think there were relatively few notable achievements during that period of time. But I think this is extraordinary life. You know, he's the youngest or the second youngest of 13 kids. They arrive here penniless to then a segregated town, Pirtleville, next to Douglas, Arizona. Lived in segregation and sheer poverty. I mean, this is a fellow who was relentless, whose energy level, whose, in a certain sense, his anger, I mean, at discrimination, at what he was going through, just propelled him forward. He never stopped. He never looked back.
He he rode the rails. He was a boxer. As we mentioned, he had a law career. He had
Well, he used to tell a story, and he'd tell this to the kids. He just mentioned, you know, he paid his way through law school. There was a lot of boxing carnivals, and there were traveling carnivals throughout the state, New Mexico and Southern California. And he'd join the carnival, and he'd box whomever got up from the crowd. You know, they'd bet, man. And that's how he paid his way through law school. And he ultimately, of course, became county attorney and a judge in Pima County, and ultimately the governor of the state of Arizona.
That kind of boxing discipline, just the discipline he showed throughout his life. In terms of politics, again, because his story is amazing, and there's so many ways to get into it, and it's been told so many different ways and times. But as a politician, he wanted to be governor. I mean, he ran twice. It's not something that
he wanted to be governor. He had come back from Bolivia as ambassador. He was one of the best-known Latinos in the state. I think the rest of the state didn't know him, but the Mexican-American community knew him and wanted to meet him. I think from the moment he came back to Tucson, there was a lot of talk about him running for governor. He was the great hope. The problem was this: Governor Castro was not your average politician. He was not a glad-handing, you know, joyful guy, slapping in the back. He was not a salesman. You know, this was one tough guy. And the first time he ran, he barely lost. He only lost by a percentage or so to Jack Williams. But the first time he lost, I think he learned a great deal. The second time he ran, he smiled a lot, but I'm not sure it was ever sincere. I mean, he was always uncomfortable at these events. But he was, like I say, he was unrelenting, he was tough, he was disciplined, he was going to do it.
Were there programs, were there ideas that he championed, if not in office, because he wasn't in office for very long, when he ran? I mean, what got him elected? I mean, people today would go, my goodness, Mexican-American got elected governor. They'd be shocked.
They would be shocked. They would be shocked. They were shocked then. I mean, his candidacy he created a backlash. His ultimate victory created a backlash. The sort of polite racial underground that had been tampered down in the 70s, because immigration was very low in the 70s, been tampered down, sort of burst out again as he succeeded. You got to recall that this is in the 70s now, where billboards and that kind of, advertising was rather primitive.
Right.
A main advertising was billboards, big billboards. And the billboard of his opponent was a blue background, his photo. His name was Russ Williams, former corporation commissioner, white, a mane of hair, a very handsome white gentleman, and all it said was, he looks like a governor. Oh. That's all it said. Oh, I think it was pretty clear what it meant. And so, I mean, even the discrimination was everywhere in those days. And, he not only overcame it, he stomped on it. He saw, I think, every attempt to keep him down as a personal affront.
And he left office to become ambassador to Argentina, right. And he left after not a very long period of time. Did he not like being governor?
No, I don't think he liked it at all. I think it was not at all what he expected. He had been an ambassador, he had been a judge, he had been a county attorney where there's executive authority and where people defer to him. He becomes governor. He's the first governor who has a 4-year term in the state of Arizona. There are great expectations of him, and he begins. I think he felt he was simply going to tell the legislature what to do, and they were going to do it.
Yes.
The particular culture of Arizona's legislature is this freewheeling, raucous, undisciplined, unbridled structure in these two houses, led in the Senate by myself. I was 26 years old at the time, and in the House by Burton Barr, the great Burton Barr, and so it was simply not what he had expected. There was no order to the place. I think he found it very, very. I think he found it juvenile. I think he said so more than once at me. I think he found it juvenile, and he found it offensive. He thought that the governor deserved greater respect than that which legislators in Arizona pay their governors.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, because it's always a curiosity among those who look at the governors of Arizona, and you see after such a short period, ambassador to Argentina. I mean, it sounds interesting and all, but if you want to be a governor of a state and you've tried so hard, once you get in, you don't leave that quick for that sort of a thing. But as you mentioned, it didn't. So with all this in mind, his background, his politics, what is his legacy?
That magnificent life. It was, you can't judge it by the 20 or so months he spent as governor. You have to judge it by, that kid that came across at, he was 10 years old or so. The second to last kid in a family of 13. Who arrives and doesn't speak a word of English. His first campaign literature had a line on it, and it said, it said, born of indigenous parents. And we used to joke that people were going to think that he was indigenous from the island of Indonesia. What he meant to say was what we call Native American. He was a tribal person. He was an Indian. That is the lowest economic class in Mexico. And his family came here, and they succeeded beyond, and he succeeded beyond anybody's wildest dreams. I mean, think about it. He got a teaching degree, and as he tells the story, and I've heard it many times, he couldn't get a job teaching because nobody would hire a Mexican teacher. So he was picking beets. He was out in the field with a degree.
Yeah.
And finally goes back to law school and he works his way through it. Boxing, going in a traveling carnival.
Yes.
It's an amazing story of achievement.
It is indeed, and I wanted to get someone here who worked with the man, knew the man, and you did. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Arizona's 3 universities lost nearly $100 million in funding during the recently ended legislative session. Friday, there was a call for increased tuition and fees to make up for the shortfall. Mark Killian is the chair of the Arizona Board of Regents, which oversees the universities. He joins us now. Good to see you. Thanks for
Glad to be
here.
here. Thanks for asking us to be here.
Let's get right to this now. The governor tells you that more funding cuts could be permanent, more cuts could be possible. I mean, he's saying this may be as good as it gets. How do you respond to that?
Ouch. Ow. You know, I think we are so black and blue from this session that there's a great level of frustration building within the university community and those that support the universities. And so I think there's a number of things that we have to do differently. And one is we're not doing a good job of communicating what it is that we do at the universities. We've got to do a better job of that, because we have 3 of the most outstanding universities in America today. And you look at what they are doing, the research they are doing, the new technologies they're using to teach our students, the advancement and the development of knowledge that's available to us in Arizona today is unprecedented. And so we've got to figure out a way to convince these policymakers that the cuts to the university, or these permanent cuts, in effect hurt our ability to deliver a quality product for the people of Arizona.
Governor says that he wants a sustainable long-term business plan as far as funding is concerned. What does that mean?
Well, I'm not sure exactly what he means by that in detail. My interpretation of that is he is looking for the universities to develop other alternatives for funding for the universities other than the general fund, which we are doing. We're looking at all kinds of business agreements. These universities are run like a business. They're billion-dollar enterprises. And we have 3 of the best top executives in America running these universities. And they're talented enough, and with their talent and the talent of their employees and working the regents, we'll come up with a plan that gets us over the hump.
The governor also said you need to restrain yourself, I think was the verbiage, restrain yourself from raising tuition. Look at cutting administrative costs, look at eliminating programs that don't work, these sorts of things. Respond.
We made a lot of cuts, we made a lot of changes in the university during the Great Recession. And during that time, we went to the good old well of raise the tuition to make up the difference. I don't believe that these regents are prepared to do that again. We can't continue to cover the legislators' tax-free environment by creating increased taxes by way of raising tuition on middle-class families. Mm-hmm. That's a non-starter. And so the regents have been good little boys and girls in the past. We've raised tuition and fees to try and make things work. We're not going down that road again.
So what road are you going to go down?
We're going to have to look hard and low at everything we do at the universities, and it looks like there's going to have to be a cost to not funding the universities through the general fund. But to go back and ask people to increase the pay of tuition, we can't price ourselves out of education in Arizona. And so my gut reaction is this group of Board of Regents isn't going to rubber stamp these proposals. We are going to look at them very carefully. We're going to try and analyze exactly just what it does to our students. But I, for one, am not interested in raising the cost of tuition for our people of Arizona.
Are you interested in suing the state over this?
Oh, I'd sue anybody over this whole problem. That's one of the options that is on the table by the regents, and we've talked about that. And that is, you know, what is the meaning of the words in the Constitution? Do they really mean what they mean? And so our lawyers are looking at every avenue to see if there's something that we need to do. The most important thing out of that whole discussion is, as regents, we don't want to give up our legal rights by not doing something, okay? Mm-hmm. And so we need to make sure we protect our legal rights under the Constitution to defend that language that says that the legislature is to fund and improve the public institutions.
And shall raise taxes.
That's right. It's a sneaky little word about shall.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't say maybe. And, you know, in Arizona, it's been 25 years since we've had a legislative imposed tax increase. And it may be time to reconsider where we're headed.
ASU trustees wrote that educated citizens' long-term health of the economy, not priorities for the state of Arizona as indicative of the budget. You agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think term limits have created a lack of institutional memory for Arizona. And as a result of that, we're not getting long-term planning like we need. When I was in the legislature years ago, there was a long-term vision of where we wanted to take the state. And I think we're missing the ball here. And the bottom line is, if you want to cure poverty in Arizona, if you want to raise incomes, if you want to raise revenue, the quickest way to do that is to have people have better paying jobs, better opportunities, get great education. They stop needing welfare, they stop needing access, they change the trajectory of families into the future, the well-being of families, the new business creations. All of these things are part of the dynamic effort of educating a populace. And somehow that's all been lost in all these political maneuverings, and it's a sad thing.
Can't let you go without your director of the Agriculture Department and that impact now. The governor saying, this, from a distance it looks like, this Killian guy's starting to kill me here. Let's make him director of the Agriculture Department. Did you campaign for that position?
No. In fact, I was approached by the agricultural community 18 months ago if I would consider being the director. And I went through an interview process, and my name was forwarded to the governor's office almost 18 months ago, and it's just been sitting up there. And like with the Department of Revenue, if the governor calls and says he needs your help, you know, I didn't want to be the state chief tax director, but he needed me to do that. And coming from an agricultural family background, I'm happy to help the governor with agriculture.
Don't think he's trying to influence your position on the budget?
You know, those people who know me that know that I don't, you know, I say what I mean. I've always been very outspoken, and I know this governor, and he's not going to get his nose out of joint because he and I disagree on the universities.
All right. It's good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Tonight's edition of Arizona Sustainability looks at a national workshop being held at Biosphere 2, the self-contained facility in southern Arizona that contains several artificial ecosystems. The workshop will focus on the delivery of food, energy, and water. It's the first of several national workshops sponsored by the National Science Foundation. Here with more is Ardith Barnhart, the Program Director of Renewable Energy at the University of Arizona, and Kim Ogden, Professor of Chemical and Environmental Engineering, also at the U of A. Good to have you both here. Thanks for coming up and talking to us about what is this conference all about?
Thanks for having us. Well, this conference is really designed to bring together experts from across the country in industry, academia, and government to think about what are the big questions that we need to answer to address the energy, water, and food opportunities and big challenges in the future.
So, and these are scientific engineering. This isn't just a bunch of people talking. This is kind of machines on the ground kind of stuff, huh?
That's right. So if you imagine that our population is growing, which in turn means we need to use more energy, which requires more water to use more energy, we need to understand how we can efficiently deliver these kinds of systems, how we can work with local communities to understand what their needs are and deliver actual scientific solutions and technologies that will help them.
How does this differ from the way these concerns and challenges are addressed right now?
I think we're trying to work as an interdisciplinary group and really look at the issues that are of importance to the United States, looking at like California issues is, you know, the newest ones with all the water problems in California right now. But here in Arizona, we're kind of like the perfect place to do the research. We have strong researchers at all of the state universities, and through the research in all different types of departments. So in anything from engineering to science to policy and social science, we can work together as a nice team with the utilities in the state and the companies in the state to actually solve the problem so that we can all enjoy the water and energy and food that we have today in the future. You
mentioned utilities, challenge of delivering electricity with less electricity.
And less water.
Yes.
To cool the plants that produce that kind of electricity. So for them it's very critical, and they also move water around the state. So what we're trying to understand is how water and energy can work together so that there's actually a net zero kind of balance, that we can produce what we need without using more. And what are the kinds of scientific questions and engineering questions, and how do we translate that to our everyday use and to our decision makers so they can understand how to use it?
Can you give us an example of those kinds of questions?
So the area that I work in right now is microalgae or green algae that's like in your swimming pool, but you can also use algae in the food chain.
Sure.
It's a great fish food, and then you can also, when gas isn't $2 a gallon, you can use it for fuel. So, but we understand how we grow algae, how it can be put into the food chain, how can we do it with recycled water, with reclaimed water type things, how can we minimize the amount of water we need to make a food product that gets into the food chain, for example.
These kinds of delivery systems sound great, and obviously it's great to work on them, but they've got to be resilient, they've got to be reliable. That's job one, isn't it?
It certainly is, and I think so. Some of the experts that we're working with in the state from the universities are working with industry to try and understand how we might be able to deliver better forecasting, for instance, so that farmers can understand when's the best time to plant a certain food product, put sensors in the ground so they can tell when the ground is dry and when it needs to be watered.
Yeah.
So that's certainly correct, yes.
Why the biosphere for something like this?
Oh, it's a unique facility, and in itself is a research facility that the University of Arizona runs. And you can actually do a lot of studies that you want to at that research facility. So we've turned it in from a little different kind of place to a really nice research facility.
And as far as the societal and economic impact of all this, I mean, is this something that we'll be hearing about and worrying about down the road, or as we see with California, is down the road right now?
I guess it depends on who you talk to, but I think it's probably closer than we want it to be.
Yeah. So what do you hope folks take out of the conference?
I think that they'll not only understand the challenges a little bit better, but more importantly, how we're going to address them and where investment needs to be made in R&D, but also where we can talk with industry and understand where some of the economic opportunities are in developing some of these systems that can be used by them.
And the event is when is this going to be again?
Wednesday through Friday at the Biosphere 2.
Okay, sounds very, and again, if when people listen to this and they're thinking, this all just sounds kind of pie in the sky, you're gonna move the pie down from the sky here, right?
We would like to, and it also gives so many opportunities for our students, right? So it allows the students that we mentor and things, undergraduates and graduates alike, to be involved in research and working on problems of interest to them, so that they, get excited about tomorrow.
And we just talked about universities and how important they are as far as it is important to have those universities involved, isn't it?
It certainly is, and I think it's important for us to mix with other universities and government and industry so we can work together.
Well, it sounds very interesting. I can't wait to see what comes out of this. Thank you both for coming up. We do appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
And that is it for now. Thank you for joining us tonight on Arizona Horizon. You have a great evening.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of 8, members of your Arizona PBS station. Thank you.
The Julianne Wrigley Global Institute of Sustainability is the heart of sustainability at ASU, advancing research, education, and business practices for an urbanizing world. You can learn more at sustainability.asu.edu/TV.